Hello everybody and welcome to the August edition of Let's Talk. This last month has been both really eventful and also just kind of going through the motions at the exact same time. I don't even know how that works, but it certainly has felt that way. I can't believe it. It honestly feels like it's been 2-3 months since I recorded the last one of these because of how much has happened, but at the same time it's just been very mellow, very chill, and part of that has to do with something I'm going to talk about later in the episode that I've spent most of the month doing. I actually haven't really worked on a ton of video content for a while because of it, but we'll discuss that a little bit later. But might as well start by talking about the stuff that happened over the last month. I want to keep this video relatively short, even though I've got so much to discuss and things to change, because this whole year in particular has just been vastly different for the channel, obviously. Totally different from the way I have been doing things for, the first 10 years of this channel. And, year 11, it's just been absolutely wild how much we've done, and the fact that I've kept, 2 videos a day going for pretty much since February, I believe. And I something that I would, in past years would have thought completely unsustainable. And I'm going to dial things back a little bit here in the near future, but just because of all of the changes, obviously we're going through some growing pains. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I want to do stuff. What's my preferred method of tackling games in different ways and looking at stuff, and so I'm going to make a couple of adjustments, and we'll talk about those in this video. But to look at the last month really quickly, obviously the big thing was the start of Pokemon Legends Arceus. Just to talk about that for a moment, because I know some people are probably a little bit surprised to see that game in particular. If we go by order of operations, my next Pokemon series was supposed to be Pokemon Platinum. But I'm just going to give you guys the lowdown on that. I am not ready to Let's Play Pokemon Platinum. Not even close. I am going to need to play through that game at least one more time in full, and then not only that, but I'm going to need to write up a guide to actually go over all of the stuff that I'm going to need to talk about when I do a Let's Play for that. It's going to be a guide game for me. Pokemon Platinum in particular, Generation 4 is the generation, or one of the generations I'm the least familiar with. I did not play Generation 4 until years after the fact. It was like the one generation I just kind of skipped. I went straight from 3 to 5 and didn't really get to touch 4 for a very long time, so I don't have a lot of history and memories with it. I've played through Pearl once and then Platinum twice, and I actually played through Platinum relatively recently, but even then I still kind of felt like I only half knew what I was doing most of the way. And the draw for my Pokemon Let's Plays for most people, particularly Pokemon Emerald, is being knowledgeable in what the heck I'm talking about. And I just can't offer that if I were to start a Pokemon Platinum Let's Play, so I'm not going to be doing that anytime soon. That's not to say I'm writing it off completely. I have more confidence going into a Legends Arceus playthrough than I do Platinum, and Legends Arceus is kind of my excuse to tackle Gen 4. Even though it's not technically Gen 4, I don't know, it's confusing. It's set in Sinnoh, so we can say that, or I guess, sorry, Hisui, which is just literally an alternate universe version of Sinnoh, but it's basically a way of me tackling that generation without skipping over it entirely, because obviously next on the docket is Pokemon White. But on top of that, and going back to things we started in the last month, we also have Poke Park, Pikachu's Adventure, a game that I was expecting to only look at for 4 episodes, and now I'm probably going to finish the game and also look at the sequel at some point, because, well, first of all, a lot of people are into it, but second of all, it's a very nice, chill, sweet game, and it's very easy to just kind of put out videos for that, and it's entertaining. It's entertainment. I think that is a perfect example of the type of games that I would like to tackle apart from my super long-winded Let's Plays like Horizon Forbidden West and Forza Horizon, these year-long affairs that just, I wouldn't say bog down the channel, but they kind of do. They kind of do bog down the channel, which is why I've tried to make so many series go on at once, is so that we have that variety. We have all these different things to look forward to every single week, just in case people aren't interested in the current Let's Plays, because I don't make Let's Plays with the present in mind. I make them with the future in mind. I'm kind of filling up a back catalog, so if anybody ever checks out the channel, they can see, oh, he played this game at some point, and they can go back and watch it, because that tends to be how most of my Let's Plays end up panning out. All of my most watched Let's Plays didn't get the majority of the reviews until years after the fact, and, I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely okay with that. I just like to constantly pump out content but try to make it nice and personal. I don't try to it's not a factory. I'm not doing this because of some sort of obligation. I'm doing it because they're games that I legitimately enjoy. And Pokepark is a perfect side experience apart from my major long-winded Let's Plays, because Pokepark's probably only going to be less than 30 episodes long. Maybe we'll push that just because the episodes have been so short, but it's not going to be a super long Let's Play or playthrough in general. And another thing we started over the last month was No Man's Sky. Now that I kind of started and then I put it on the back burner, and it's going to be on the back burner for a little bit longer than I intended. So here's the way it works right now. So I brought back Paintball Game, and as of right now, I am going to continue to upload that until it's done, until I have gotten through every single episode I intend to get through. I've said many times throughout the course of that series, I am not going to finish the entirety of career mode. I am going to go up to a very specific point, a cutoff point where I know that if I try to progress past that point, I'm going to get my ass beat by the game because it's ridiculously hard. And once we hit that point, I will show just a little bit of it, and then we're going to cut the series off. And that will be it. That'll be it for that playthrough. So once that is done, which that's not going to be for probably several more weeks, then I will get back into No Man's Sky, or at least get back to starting to record it, because I didn't want to continue that series on Xbox One anymore because of two reasons. One, Xbox One, inferior console at this point, given we now have the Series X and the PS5. And two, I only had No Man's Sky on Xbox One because of Game Pass. So if that ever left the service, that series is screwed. So I wanted to actually purchase the game and play it that way, and I decided let's do it on a superior console, and so I bought it on PlayStation 5. And that's how I want to look at that series in future. I didn't want to get too deep into it, and because as far as I know, that game doesn't have cross saves, and you can't move content over between consoles, especially between Xbox and PlayStation. So I didn't want to get too deep into that series before we got to a point where I was going to get, cut off, or I was going to be basically railroaded into or stuck on this what's objectively an inferior console. I mean, out of all of the consoles of the last two generations, the Switch, the PS4, the PS5, the Xbox Series X, and the Xbox One, as much as I enjoy my Xbox One, that is my absolute least preferred way to look at games if and whenever possible. The only reason I usually use it on the channel at all is for the sake of Game Pass, and then the Forza Horizon Let's Plays, and that's it. I don't like to look at Xbox One when I can help it, and I'm really hoping to get my hands on a Series X before year's end, so I don't ever have to do that again. But that is why we did that. So like I said, it's going on hold for a while. Paintball Game returned, and that's going to keep going for a little while. Let's talk about the future, though. The near future first, and then the distant future after. So I said for August, I said this in the last Let's Talk, I have a few things planned for August, and I'm changing up a couple of those things. The first one I want to talk about is Destiny 2. So I was planning on this month in particular making a series of videos about how and why I think people should get into Destiny 2 in 2022. Why I think now is a good time to take a look at it, why I think it's a phenomenal game, why I still play it to this day, all that stuff. Here's the problem, though. Destiny 2 is a live service. That much is obvious. This is, Final Fantasy XIV, Warframe, games like that are all in the same boat as Destiny 2. But Destiny has a very, very rigid content structure. At least it has for the past 3 years, and it doesn't look like it's going to be changing anytime soon. They will release an expansion every year. They will then do 3 seasons after the fact, or technically 4, but the first of those 4 seasons coincides with the expansion release. So it'll be like you'll get the expansion and the season that comes with it. Then 3 months later will be the second season. Then 3 months later will be the third season, and then the 4th season, and then the next expansion, so on and so forth. And right now we're kind of in limbo, especially because the last expansion, Witch Queen, that came out back in February, was delayed by several months. So that season before it was much longer than normal, and it's kind of thrown off the cadence of everything. So we're just about to get to, in the end of August, we're about to get into the 3rd season, which this is usually about when the 4th season would be wrapping up and we'd actually be heading into the next expansion. They usually released in September, but now it's more of a winter affair, just because, they want to delay it for the developer's health, and that's totally understandable. But it's kind of thrown things a little bit out of whack. Things are more in flux. So what I have decided to do is because we're going to be heading into a new season, and that's also not like the most optimal time to explain why people should play the free-to-play experience, because that's how everyone's going to start with Destiny. You're going to play the free-to-play model first, see if you like the game, and before you actually decide to spend money on it. I feel like any reasonable person would do that, and I don't think trying to do so right away would be the best time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold off on this for a little bit longer. The next expansion, I would assume, is going to be coming around February, March, and that is called Lightfall. And before that expansion, right before that expansion, I think would be a perfect time to start with a series like that, because it gives me, like if I do it like a month in advance, it gives me a little bit of time to sit down and describe the free-to-play experience and go through it myself, because I've actually never seen it myself, and I can go through the free-to-play experience and kind of give people the lowdown on how the game works and why you should play it and what there is to enjoy before you spend a single penny. After the fact, once we have gone through all of that, we can then start to explain what it's like to get into a brand new expansion, because with one coming, that would make a whole lot of sense. It's like, here's Lightfall, here's how this expansion works, and if you do decide to spend money, this is probably the first thing that you would end up buying. And from there, we can move on into the other pieces of the content model and things like that, because I'll be completely upfront, totally honest with you, and this is true with basically any really good live service. It's a bit of a commitment, and I'm talking monetarily a bit of a commitment, and to a lot of people, they're going to look at how expensive it is to get into something like Destiny. You pay the $40 for the expansion, but then you also pay $20 a year for the season pass, and you're like, that's for a year's worth of content, and a lot of people would look at that and go, $60 for 1 year when I can buy another $60 game or $70 game or whatever, and it can last me for years and years and years. I don't really see how that's worth it, but once you actually see what you're being given, how much is on offer, I think it's going to make a little bit more sense. But again, you have to be willing to make that commitment, and that is something I would have to go over and break down in a series like that. So it's something that I need to time properly, and doing it right in the thick, right in the dog days of summer and essentially the seasonal model of Destiny, I think is probably bad timing. I think it would be better to do it kind of as, as the player base is gearing up for the next expansion and the game is at its greatest lull, which is usually in the month or so leading up to the next expansion. That's when the game's at its slowest. I think that would be a good time to sit down and talk about the game and go over it and all of its particulars. So I'm going to wait on that a little while. I'm not going to do that here in August. Instead, my plans and my focus is shifting on both the current series and then a couple of additional series that are going to be coming here in the near future. So 2 series are going to be ending in the month of August, and that is Fallout 4 and Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is not going away permanently, though. As I eventually found out once I got to the finale, there is a lot more to that game than I initially thought. So it's going to go away for a very long time, but it will come back at some point. That being said, Kirby and the Forgotten Land goes up on Mondays and Thursdays in the evenings, and I'm not going to be replacing that time slot. I said many times before, the 2 videos a day thing is not sustainable for me. I can't do it forever. It's been really fun, and it's been really exciting to be able to put out this much content, but that is going to be the one major time slot that I am just going to leave, and it's not getting replaced. So once Kirby and the Forgotten Land is done, that's just open. Mondays and Thursdays will be exclusively Pokemon Legends Arceus and nothing else. As for Fallout 4, that I upload on Tuesdays and Saturdays in the evenings, and that's a Let's Play day. Now, Forza Horizon and Horizon Forbidden West, those 2 series, because they're so long, I would like to constantly have something else supplementing the upload schedule on those particular days. So I will be replacing Fallout 4 with another series, and that one I've actually completely recorded and uploaded to the channel, scheduled it all in advance. That one's ready to go. So that is going to get replaced, and it's something that I've already finished. It's nothing I'm going to be talking about in this series. You'll see what it is when it comes out, so just bear with me on that. Fallout 4 is basically, the Brotherhood of Steel run through anyway, is basically through the main story, and then I think there's 1, possibly 2 additional episodes after the fact, and that's it. That's all that series is going to be. So yeah, that one doesn't have much left to it. It should end here relatively soon. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is my variety content. So usually I put out variety content on the same days as Horizon Forbidden West, being Sundays and Wednesdays in the evenings. But right now, Pokepark has kind of taken that slot up, and it's going to kind of continue to take that slot up for a little while. So I'm shifting things a little and turning that into Friday. Now, I said before that once Paintball Game is over, that I'm going to start working on No Man's Sky. That doesn't mean that's going to start uploading on Fridays just yet. I'm going to save No Man's Sky for a little bit later. Friday is going to kind of become the new variety day, and what I'm going to do is instead of uploading 2 short episodes of variety content, 2 15 to 20 minute episodes, I'm going to essentially take a page out of the book of one of my favorite Let's Players on YouTube, Steven Plays, and do what he calls First 20, but I'm just going to continue with the same upload structure that I've always used. Let's have a look at games I remember, things like that. But instead, these videos are going to be more around 30 to 50 minutes long, possibly even an hour at times. It'll just be a singular video where we get a good, nice long look at the entire game and then move on from there. And that will be once a week. So every single Friday in the afternoon, the usual upload time, 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time, etc., etc. So again, that is going to basically cut down the number of uploads in a given week from 14 to 11. But one of those that's going to be cut down is just going to become a longer video, if that makes sense. And Pokemon Legends Arceus is still going strong, Horizon Forbidden West still going strong, Forza Horizon 3 still going strong, and then there will be the 4th series, and that's going to be it for the next little while. And as far as the rest of this month is concerned, the series that I'm going to be working on, just so you guys have something to look forward to. So the first one that I'm going to be jumping on and tackling is NFL Street for the GameCube. That is a Extreme Sports EA Big title that I have wanted to cover for quite some time. I have a lot of fond memories of that game, and I can't wait to show it because it's absolutely ridiculous, but it's a total blast, tons of fun, and going through the career mode in that is actually quite a lot of fun. So we'll take a look at that one. The other one I'm going to be jumping into is Ghost of Tsushima. We're going to be jumping back into that. I'm going to try to migrate my save to the PlayStation 5 version so we can get the smoother, better, objectively nicer experience from that edition, because I did the entire Let's Play on the PlayStation 4, and we're going to be taking a look at the entirety of the Iki Island DLC. And the last game that I am going to be jumping into this month is Pikmin. Now, this is a series that I do not have a lot of history or memories of. I have probably put in about 4 hours into the first Pikmin. I think I finished it, but I didn't 100% it. But it was, I mean, that was so long ago, I barely even remember. And then I've only maybe played about 2 hours of Pikmin 2, and I've never touched Pikmin 3. So I don't have a lot of experience or history with that series, so it's going to be a kind of almost semi-blind run-through. Like, I know the gist and the basics. Like, I know how to play the game, but I also don't know, like, everything. I don't know the level layouts and everything. I haven't encountered every single enemy type, fought every single type of boss, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be interesting. It's not, like I said, it's not going to be a Let's Play. It's just going to be more of a playthrough, but we'll be taking a look at that one together, and hopefully you guys can give me some pointers and tips, because I'm sure I will struggle with it a little bit, because if I remember correctly, I'm not very good at it, but I will do my absolute best, and I've always wanted to take a look at it. And that's basically everything I wanted to talk to you guys about in regards to the channel. But the last thing that I want to discuss, and this is not usually the segment I save for the end, but in this particular case, I feel like it's warranted. Last thing I want to talk about is the stuff that I have been playing. And in particular, I have been playing one thing and one thing only. Like, what was it, 2 days after I uploaded the July Let's Talk, I got an email. And that email said, hey, your Steam Deck reservation, it's gone through, and you can now pay it in full. So, paid it in full, and about a week and a half later, my Steam Deck arrived, and I have been playing the absolute crap out of that system. I love my Steam Deck so darn much. So I got the 512 gigabyte model, the most expensive one. Holy crap, it was so much money. I mean, I'm poor for a while because of that thing, but totally worth it. So nice to get a 512 gigabyte SSD. I also made sure to get myself a nice like USB-C hub setup where, you know, I can plug in keyboards easily and HDMI, so I'll actually be able to do some Let's Playing off of the Steam Deck, which will be nice because honestly, at the moment, and I hate to say this, but at the moment, the Steam Deck is probably my most advanced gaming PC that I own. I know, that's crazy, but when I look at my recording PC, which has a GTX 760 in it, I know it's ancient. The only reason I use it is because it has an insanely powerful processor, and that's kind of all you need for video editing. And then my laptop has, I want to say, a GTX 1060? I think it's a 1060, which is fine, but it's also a laptop, and its processor isn't super great, so it doesn't actually run a lot of games as well as I would like for it to. Granted, I kind of cheaped out on a little bit, so in a lot of ways, the Steam Deck is kind of my best gaming PC at the moment, and so it would be a nice way for me to actually look at a lot of games, and it's probably how I'm going to actually do emulation. Probably should talk about that for a second. So the reason I got a Steam Deck in the first place was not just to play my Steam library on handheld. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still really cool. I mean, oh my gosh, I am getting so much mileage out of playing things like Fallout 4 on a handheld. That game in particular, I've gotten the most mileage out of, but I played a bunch of other things too. But the other reason I wanted a Steam Deck was basically to make it my emulation station. It's where I've got all my ROMs basically from NES all the way up to through the Wii. I'm having a little bit of problems with stuff like RPCS3 and Yuzu and Cemu. I haven't really gotten that kind of stuff to work, but everything before that has mostly run great. I will say Dolphin kind of runs like garbage on this thing, and I don't know why. That could be an issue with just my Steam Deck alone, or maybe I'm not quite understanding that one. I've never really had issues with Dolphin. In fact, it runs smoother on my laptop, my garbage GTX 1060 laptop, than it does on the Steam Deck for whatever reason. I can only get a couple of games to run really smoothly. Like, I think Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door runs really well, and Super Smash Bros. Melee runs reasonably well, but not amazingly. And then everything else runs, like, kind of bad. But as far as everything else is concerned, PCSX2, PPSSPP, I don't want to name every single emulator off the top of my head, but even like Flycast and I mean, Desmume, all of them run beautifully on this thing. And I got a 1 terabyte micro SD specifically just for that. And having those two things in conjunction, being able to constantly switch from my old favorites to my Steam library, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing with this machine. A lot of people complain about the battery with the Steam Deck. I don't really have a complaint with that, because I got myself a battery pack with it, and that's mostly panned out pretty great. I mean, you need to get a pretty darn high voltage, or high wattage, excuse me, battery pack to make it actually work with the Steam Deck. And even then, it still drains the battery pack fairly quickly. Like, let's say I'm running a very high CPU-intensive Steam game that on the normal battery would last maybe about an hour and a half, because yes, some games will make the Steam Deck last only like an hour and a half, especially if you run them on the higher settings. It drains it pretty quickly. Now, if I were to plug that battery pack into it, for instance, it maybe doubles it sometimes, so that jumps it up to about 3 hours, which to a lot of people that can be an issue, and I can totally see it. Now, getting additional battery packs might be nice. Personally, though, I haven't had a lot of issues of just having my charging port on standby next to me. I mean, most of the games I've been playing, I've just been playing in my bed, and so it's like I can just plug it in right then and there and then have no problem playing it. Obviously, I don't want to fry the battery, so I end up having to let it discharge every once in a while, but that's like the only gripe I could possibly think of with this machine. It's been absolutely wonderful. It takes some getting used to. I'm not versed in Linux at all, so it's been interesting learning how to do that, because for all intents and purposes, the Steam Deck is a PC. It's a Linux-based PC, and it runs games, and it's great at it. It really is. I mean, I can do so many different cool things with this machine that I've set up. I mean, one of my favorites actually is I think it was like last week, I learned how to set up PlayStation 5 remote play on the thing. I was playing Destiny on it for a while, because you can't actually use the Steam version of Destiny. Any game, that's the one issue I would say, and it's not Valve's fault, it's the developers of the different games' fault. Any game that has an integrated anti-cheat system, like Destiny is a good example of that. I think Overwatch is another one, and then basically anything on the Epic Game Store. None of that stuff works on the Steam Deck, no matter how much you finagle with it. You can even get things like Origin and Uplay and GOG to work on the Steam Deck, but not Epic Games, and not, again, games with integrated anti-cheat. Those just do not work. They will, in fact, you will get a ban if you are caught trying to play most of those games on the Steam Deck. So my workaround was instead to play it on my PlayStation 5, but it's like, I don't want to get up and go over to the console. What if I just played this in bed for a while? And it works great. It works great. I mean, that's obviously more internet dependent, but I hooked my Steam Deck up to the Ethernet and played Destiny on it for about 3 hours, and that was a lot of fun. I mean, it's really freaking cool, the things you can do with this, and that was not an official app on the Steam Deck or anything. It was actually something that took a little bit of finagling and a little bit of jerry-rigging to actually figure out, but it works. It really does work, and it's I mean, it's so freaking cool what you can do with this. It is my favorite new little toy, and I gotta say, just to kind of bring up the whole Steam Deck versus Switch controversy, because people have decided to make that a thing, and I really don't understand why, because it's very obvious what caters to what. But people have been making the argument, oh, the Steam Deck is going to be the Switch killer, or they make the argument that Steam Deck is just a niche thing and no one's ever going to like it. Both of these are actually true. Both are true. As far as the Switch is concerned, I will more than likely never buy another multi-platform game on the Switch ever again. I just won't, because my Steam Deck covers all my needs and runs all those games better, and the fidelity is greater. But on top of that, Steam tends to give deeper discounts to games, like even older games, than the eShop ever does. The eShop is one of the most stingy places when it comes to discounts and deep game sales of any platform imaginable. And just on that merit alone, the Steam Deck is superior in every single way. But that being said, I will still absolutely use my Switch for first-party games, for things like Animal Crossing New Horizons and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey and Yoshi's Crafted World and basically all of that. But what this also does, the Steam Deck also does, is totally frees me of the, I guess I would say, obligation of needing to pay for Switch Online anymore, because I can get all of those games that are being offered for as part of the Switch Online service on my Steam Deck, no problem. I really don't need any of those games. The only reason I think I was even paying the Switch Online fee was to have access to those N64 games, but I don't need that anymore. I really don't. Steam Deck completely takes that away. But that being said, the Steam Deck in total, not just the console, but all of the things I got with it, ran me about $800. I mean, I can buy 3 Switches for that price, 4 if they're all Switch Lites. I mean, that's a clear difference in value proposition, and obviously, I would not ever suggest that people who buy a Switch should just go buy a Steam Deck. No, absolutely not. The Steam Deck is much more price prohibitive, and it is very expensive, and is definitely more of an enthusiast's tool. I consider myself a gaming enthusiast, therefore I figured that the Steam Deck was actually worth my time, and so far it has really panned out. It's very much worth my time and money. But I would also say that it does do a lot of what the Switch does better, but not absolutely everything. I think it would be very disingenuous for me to say that the Steam Deck is just vastly superior in every single way. Because I don't know. There's been the debate of Yuzu, you know, the Switch emulator. Is this just a better way of playing games than the Switch? And I don't really care. I mean, me personally, this is kind of where I draw my line in the sand. And obviously, you know, it's subjective. Everyone's got their own opinions. I'm not about to come out here and defend Nintendo over piracy or anything like that, because they do a lot of that to themselves. But I personally, my moral line in the sand is that as long as a company is actively selling those games, I won't emulate it. As long as they have them on the market and they are continuing to try to make a profit off of them, but are actually making them available to consumers, then I will always try to get those games through official means, and I will never try to emulate them unless something seriously wrong happens, which I actually can't even think of like an example of that happening to me personally. But the second that stuff is taken off the market, like, oh, I don't know, they're about to shut down the Wii U eShop, then it's suddenly all fair game in my opinion. The second you guys make it harder to access something, I would much rather go through the route of emulation than paying some dude on eBay who thinks that his copy of the Wii U edition of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is worth $1,500 because he got it WATA graded or whatever. I'm not about to play those sorts of games. I'm not there to entertain the scammers on eBay and give them money when it's not benefiting anybody except for, again, the scammers on eBay. It's not helping Nintendo, so who cares, really? It's not a lost sale, so whatever. But as far as like Yuzu and stuff is concerned, yeah, that would be where I would draw that line in the sand, and I'm not about to go and try to emulate Pokemon Legends Arceus on my Steam Deck, for instance. But that being said, wonderful little system. Can't wait to use it for video content. Can't wait to play it more. In fact, I'll be doing probably quite a bit of that this weekend. It's such a lovely, lovely little piece of tech, and if you can get your hands on it, I cannot recommend it enough. It really is worth it, and they're starting to speed up production on the thing, which is good to hear, and hopefully it becomes available to the mass markets and not everybody has to jump through these reservation hoops, because if you want to know how hard it is to actually get your hands on this and how long I had to wait, so there's people out there who are like, oh man, I reserved the Steam Deck back in December. Why do I have to wait so long? Well, guess when I reserved my Steam Deck? I reserved it 2 hours after the reservations went live, the day of, and I still had to wait until Q3. Granted, I was in the early stages of Q3, but I still had to wait until Q3. I was in one of the later batches of Steam Deck, and I reserved that day. The people that reserved days after the fact, months after the fact, you guys are going to be waiting a super long time. And the people that are waiting for it to hit store shelves or something along those lines, I mean, you honestly might be waiting forever. So if you've been thinking about getting your hands on one, I would highly recommend doing so. As far as the different prices of the Steam Deck, because you can get the 64 gigabyte SSD one for the cheapest. I think that one's like $400. I would honestly recommend going as big as you can unless you have confidence in swapping out the SSDs yourself, which SSDs are expensive, so trying to get your hands on an upgrade might be a little bit on the tricky side. But I would recommend going as big as possible, because that 512 gigabytes fills up very fast. I have 30 games downloaded on my Steam Deck, and I'm already out of space. And I deliberately chose a lot of small storage space games because I knew I was going to run out of space fast. And yeah, it goes really, really quickly. And I would say right now, don't bank on just installing most of your games to the micro SD, because it does, I think, how do I put this? The quality goes down a little bit when you're trying to play games off of an SSD, and even that space can go very, very quickly. So you might want to get multiples of those if you plan on using that, but regardless. Guys, that's going to be it for this Let's Talk. Thank you all so very much for watching. Here's to another, hopefully, very productive month. I hope you guys are looking forward to a lot of the stuff that's going to be coming out here soon. I hope you guys are enjoying what you're already getting as far as Pokepark and Legends Arceus and Horizon Forbidden West and Forza Horizon 3 are concerned. Oh, last thing, and I didn't really mention this, but in a roundabout way I sort of did. But as far as Pokemon is concerned, I am officially making it my mission now to keep a Pokemon series going on this channel from here on out at all times. There are so many Pokemon games that I haven't yet covered. I have been so slow with covering different Pokemon games. I mean, we've only gone through, 3 in the 11 years of this channel, and we're on our 4th now. I guess technically 4 if we count the very first Pokemon Mystery Dungeon way back in the day, but there are so many Pokemon games I have to look at on this channel that it's going to get to a point where I think I just need to keep a constant series going in regards to Pokemon. So once Legends Arceus is over, it'll just get replaced by another one, and that's going to keep happening from here on out. So expect that. Look forward to that. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.